Christmas morning 2009, and thousands of people boarded planes all over the world in a last-minute dash to make it home. But one man's journey had a very different motive. A 23-year-old suicide bomber, trained by Al-Qaeda, planned to destroy a busy passenger jet bound for the US.
Terrorists come back to aviation over and over again because it is such a dramatic target.
The plot was painstakingly devised to circumvent our aviation security systems.
These are guys who are extraordinarily inventive in the ways they attack the system.
Technology is developed over decades to defend us from terrorist attack.
I don't know of one case where any form of technology caught a terrorist with a bomb.
The terrorists have so many options. We can't protect against everything.
The plot would also expose fatal flaws in Western intelligence systems.
The American intelligence system had enough to know that Umar Farouk Abdulmutallab should not be allowed to get on the plane.
This is the story of how Al-Qaeda smuggled a bomb on board Flight 253.
And all of a sudden I heard a pop.
And then the flight attendant, she just tore down the aisle at full speed.
And discovers what the surprising outcome would have been had the Christmas Day bomb plot gone to plan. Christmas Eve 2009. In Accra Airport, Ghana, a young man called Umar Farouk Abdulmutallab began a 23-hour voyage from Africa to the US. The first leg of his journey was Virgin Nigeria Flight 804 to Lagos.
Abdulmutallab begins what is going to be a long journey to the United States in Accra, Ghana. He's going to fly just a few hundred miles along the coast of Western Africa to Nigeria on what is essentially a short hop of a flight.
He was an ordinary-looking guy, very student-looking, very relaxed, very chilled, very clever, very intelligent, knew his way about the aviation system, didn't necessarily generate any concern to anybody.
Abdulmutallab's appearance may have been just of a kid traveling alone on his way to the United States, perhaps to visit friends or family. He was part of a quite sophisticated plot.
In a very real sense, Abdulmutallab didn't fit the stereotype of what I guess many of us assume a terrorist is.
The Western-educated son of a wealthy Nigerian banker was used to international travel, but today's journey would be different. Abdulmutallab was on a mission to get through airport security in 3 different countries and board a plane with a bomb in his underwear.
Unknown to everyone else, sewn into his underpants is a military-grade explosive that is known to be a threat to aviation.
Abdulmutallab's 7,000-mile journey will take him via Lagos to Schiphol in the Netherlands. There he plans to board a flight to Detroit. As the plane prepares to land in America, he will explode his device. Abdulmutallab's bomb plot would be just the latest in a long line of terrorist attacks on passenger airliners. Attacks that seem to have evaded every new attempt to tighten security.
There's a constant battle going on between terrorist organizations on the one side and the aviation industry on the other side.
As things have evolved over time, the terrorists are looking at how we do things, and they're finding vulnerabilities. And the game is continually changing, and the problem is they have multiple ways of achieving their goal.
The Christmas Day attack would once again push the boundaries in the cat-and-mouse game between terrorists and the constantly evolving security systems they seek to evade.
Al-Qaeda has the unique advantage of being an enemy on the offensive, being very crafty and innovative, but also being able to understand almost instantaneously via the internet and the press what its enemy, the United States, the UK, and others, are doing to stop it.
Abdul Muttalib's plot was devised to exploit one of the last remaining loopholes in aviation security. Just after 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve, Umar Farouk Abdul Muttalib touched down in Nigeria, completing the first leg of his journey. He had smuggled his bomb through one airport security check and onto a plane undetected. He was now 22 hours away from his goal, detonating his bomb inside a US plane packed with passengers. At Lagos Airport, one of Africa's biggest, Abdul Muttalib faced a well-established series of aviation security checks before he could board his flight to Schiphol. Like all international airports, Lagos follows a strict airport security protocol known as ICAO Annex 17. It sets down basic security procedures developed over decades to prevent terrorist attack. The bombing of Pan Am 103 over Lockerbie in 1988 forced perhaps the biggest rethink of aviation security since the 70s.
Sabotage is the most likely cause of the Scottish air disaster. All 258 people on board a Pan American jumbo jet died when the plane exploded and crashed to the ground.
Recreations of the blast revealed that it was caused by 400 grams of Semtex. The explosive was hidden inside a radio checked into the hold by a passenger who didn't board the plane. The attack led to rules requiring hold baggage to be screened to deter terrorists.
When you check your suitcase to fly, that bag is sent through explosives detection system. It's computed tomography. It's like a CAT scan at the hospital. The chance of that technology finding what it's looking for, basically automatically, is nearly 100%.
Lockerbie also meant that planes couldn't take off until all passengers who had checked baggage into the hold had boarded. As a result, terrorists were forced to change their tactics. They had to become suicide bombers, carrying their bombs on board planes hidden in hand luggage or on their bodies. They would still encounter security technology, but of a type introduced to counter a threat from an earlier era.
We had a spate of hijackings, often involving knives, handguns, incendiary devices, grenades being taken on board planes, planes being hijacked and oftentimes taken out into the desert and held for ransom.
Due to the hijackings, the Take Me to Cuba era of the late 60s and early 70s, the decision was made to screen all passengers boarding aircraft. The technology then is not too similar to the technology now to screening checkpoint.
We have metal detection to identify whether we're carrying any weapons on the person. We have X-ray machines to put your bag through to make sure there's no explosive device. We have trace detection systems. People's bags are swabbed to see if there are any trace elements of explosive.
When a passenger enters a metal detector arch, it sends pulses through the body, creating a magnetic field that reflects back a signal. If the pulse meets anything metal, like a knife, or the wires and components of a bomb, an opposing magnetic field is created, which triggers an alarm. But metal detectors cannot detect explosives hidden on the body. X-ray scanning machines allow operators to see inside carry-on bags to look for the outlines of weapons and possible explosive devices. At Lagos Airport, CCTV captured this image of Abdul Muttalib calmly reading a newspaper as he waited to go through security screening. He was told to put his shoes through the X-ray scanner. The measure was introduced 8 years earlier after shoe bomber Richard Reed smuggled explosives onto a plane hidden in his trainers. But Abdul Muttalib had his explosives hidden elsewhere. He passed through the metal detector without his bomb setting off the alarm.
The single biggest concern that aviation security officials have is explosives that are non-metallic, that are carried in private parts of a passenger's body.
They have determined that we don't have anything in place to find explosives hidden on the person.
His carry-on bag also passed through the X-ray machine without incident.
Al-Qaeda know the capability of the technology that's deployed in airports worldwide. An X-ray device will look for an improvised explosive device or the telltale signs of that device.
Since the package of explosive was hidden in Abdul Muttalib's groin, a standard physical pat-down would almost certainly not have been intrusive enough to discover it. His device had been meticulously designed to evade airport security. In fact, it was a kit of component parts he wouldn't even assemble until he's on board Flight 253. The main charge was the high-explosive pentaerythritol tetranitrate, or PETN, a compound widely used in demolition.
PETN is readily available. It can be used in powder form in small amounts to have great effect. It's been used by terrorists over the years, so it's not a new compound or a new concoction.
The terrorists knew that if Abdul Muttalib handled the bomb, he could be caught by electronic trace detectors that sniff out explosive residue. So it's likely someone else created the device. The package, once tightly packed, would be no bigger than a mobile phone, and its plastic wrapping would deter detection.
If you take the explosives and you case them in something that's not porous, in other words, it doesn't let out vapor or particles, and then you take that item, that sealed package, and you cleanse it, then nobody can find it with any technology.
Instead of a conventional detonator that could be detected by metal detector or X-ray machines, he had a small amount of liquid chemical to ignite the PETN. Finally, he had a syringe to administer the chemical that he could claim he carried for medical reasons.
This was the perfect device, simply made out of components that couldn't be seen by the conventional technology that we have in airports nowadays. They've developed a device here that can essentially sail through all of that security process entirely undetected.
The idea of smuggling Abdul Muttalib's explosive through security checks in his underwear had already been road-tested by Al-Qaeda. 4 months before the Christmas Day attack, a suicide bomber had blown himself up in a failed attempt to assassinate a Saudi government minister. It was discovered that he, too, had passed through a metal detector with PETN hidden in his underpants.
The attempted assassination of Mohammed bin Nayef, the counterterrorism chief for Saudi Arabia, was an incredibly important moment. This was a canary in the coal mine because it suggested that Al-Qaeda in Yemen was growing more sophisticated with its explosives, that they have a bomb maker that's expert in this. And it also suggested that this was a new way that they were trying to hide the explosives.